Hello, welcome back to another Let's Build. Now, I promised you guys this Let's Build video. I was gonna get it out before we started the Nuclear Craft series, but time defeated me and I had to move on to other things. But now I found the time, I've taken the footage, dug it up, and made this Let's Build video. So again, we're starting this build as we start most builds these days, with different color wool, so that I can get my mind and wrap my head around the area that we've built and developed. Now, I used a World Edit to terraform this nice little area. It wasn't just this perfect open meadow that I lucked out and found in the wilderness. I actually created this myself, and it looks natural enough, so I'm pretty happy with what I achieved. So the kind of style of building we're going for, it's not going to be like a traditional Simpson-style nuclear power plant with those big coolant towers. It's going to be more of like an office-y kind of grim industrial building with greys and blacks and lots of kind of passive tones. So, because we have the luxury of copy and pasting, I only have to build half of the building and then copy it over to the left. But that said, I still need these yellow blocks here to work out the size of the building and where I'm putting things. And even then, sometimes the size is wrong. We're trying to make sure that we have a one block center to this build. What does that mean? It means if you take the whole building and you go to the very middle point of it, it's going to be one block. It's not going to be a block of 4. And that's pretty useful for symmetry. So I've used, I think, this basalt brick for the floor. We're using yellow concrete also. And we're trying to make like a nuclear symbol here. Now, building a nuclear symbol in Minecraft turned out to be a bit of a ball ache. It took me a long time to get this nuclear symbol just the way I wanted it. I went back and forth with it. I copied it over, mirrored it so that the whole thing was complete. But I was never quite happy with it, so I kept going back and making changes to it. It was even more difficult as well because I didn't have this bird's eye camera view to see what looked good. I was down there on the floor, and that kind of skewed my perspective. But after a while, I'd finally put in place a nuclear symbol that I was happy with, and it was time to move forwards with the rest of the build. Because we couldn't spend too long. Sometimes when you're building a build like this, you get caught up in the idea of something that you're building, like a weird idea, and you feel like it has to look perfect. And being a perfectionist is not a bad thing. It drives you to do your best, but it can be a bit of a distraction. So anyway, we got a nuclear symbol that we were happy with, and we moved forwards. Even then, I'm not 100% happy with this, but I wanted to frame it with the concrete blocks we had as well. Now, the main building materials for this build are going to be stone brick. It's an old classic, a favourite, but even though it's vanilla, it's still a strong brick, a timeless brick that works pretty well. And we're giving the building a lot of bracing in the form of this slate. I think these are slate pillars. I love the look of them and the fact that when you build them sideways, they kind of have a sideways look as well, which helps a lot with the visual direction of the build. So the first floor is kind of has a fixed diameter, and then for the second floor of this building, we're coming out one block and just giving the building a bit of kind of lean out, so it doesn't look too flat and boring. Now there's going to be a lot of windows in this build, but windows need bracing, and so again we're using this slate pillar to create a kind of exoskeleton for the build. Copy and paste is your friend, and so once I was happy with the front half, I copied that around the back. Now again, you might remember, and I've said it before, we've only got half the building here, because once we've got this half done, and we're happy with it, we can literally just copy it, mirror it, and paste it. Mirroring comes with its own issues though. For one, when you put down stairs, when you mirror something, the orientation on those stairs can kind of look a bit wrong. It can paste them down facing the wrong direction, so we have to be careful with that and address that when we pasted it. And for the windows themselves, we wanted to have something that wasn't just clear glass, so I've gone for this kind of white stained pane of glass. And now with the exterior done, it was time to trim up the interior, because we're copying this, and when we paste it, we want to have to not create too much work for ourselves inside the build. So I want to get as much done with the interior before I copy and pasted it. Now, this is a bit of a new one for me on these kind of builds, because usually if I'm building a building, you only see the outside because it's not a functional building, like for example Elsa's Ice Fortress and things that had no interior. But I wanted to make sure that this one we're going to actually be playing in. We're going to actually play nuclear craft, and we're going to build our own nuclear facility inside this. So I was very careful to actually get the interiors done. So it took me a while to actually get the mirroring and the flipping right. But once I had finally done it correctly, boom, voila, instant building. We've got a nice big front door as well. I think we're going to put a molasses. We're going to use a molasses front door. Now again, yeah, just copy and pasting those floors. We're going to want plenty of floor space inside the build to work with. And so I think we've allowed ourselves about 4 or 5 different floors inside, which is going to be great for us. We're going to need a lot of space inside to do all the nuclear stuff. And in fact, since I've already started this project, and we're already playing nuclear craft, you can see we're well on the way to using up all of the floors that we have inside. Now, I like the idea of this square in the middle to kind of give us light, but also a feeling of depth to the building. When you're inside the building, you can see all the floors from the middle. And it's a kind of common office design as well. And this column in the middle at the back, well, if you've seen the series, you'll already know we're using open blocks, and that's an elevator shaft. Now, the elevator shaft is going to go to each floor, but not just that, it's going to go to the roof. So we've kind of gone inside, we put down some more slate pillars and used iron bars around the edge to give it a bit more of like an industrial kind of grim look. Now we're keeping that square hole in the middle. That's going to be a big old skylight. And we've used dark, dirty grey concrete for the ceiling tiles. Now I want a logo on the front of the building, and why not another nuclear symbol? It took me a long time to build the first one, but I got a reference for this one, found a design I liked, and decided to copy it onto the front of the building. So I cut away some of the windowsills and started to build this kind of, it's not really a circle, but it's more like a beveled square, like a rounded square. So we've got a black border here. I can't remember what brick it was. I think it might have been basalt brick again. But for the actual logo itself, for the actual building symbol, using lamp blocks because they glow. Now, I'd actually done the circle a little bit too small, and I only just realized now, so I had to come down below and add a few more bricks there. Easy peasy. It messed up the windows a bit, but it was nothing we couldn't fix. We had the symmetry, and when you have the symmetry, everything's easy to fix in post. And there we go, a nuclear symbol. And I spent a lot less time on this one than the one on the floor, that's for damn sure. So then it was a case of plumbing in the windows, adding a front path. And there you go, the front glowing, illuminating nuclear symbol for the power plant is complete. Now it's time to come up to the roof. So I thought the building was a bit flat. It looks a bit plain in the distance. It doesn't look like anything special. It's just a big old square building. So to change that up, we're using steel and aluminium scaffolding here in a kind of crisscross pattern, because I want to have big electric pylons. Now you might have seen these around the countryside if you live somewhere with electric pylons, but these big steel pylons that kind of go around the countryside to ferret power around the country. So I'm replicating that design with these crisscross aluminium and dark steel frameworks and building these pylon towers, and I'm pretty happy with how they looked. And again, because I was going to repeat the design, it was a case of copy and paste. I wasn't sure if I wanted 6 on top of here or 4, but I settled finally on 6 in total. And once I was happy with that placement on the left, I copied that over to the right. Looking pretty good. Now I added these HV connectors and HV connector cables to kind of bridge the gap between those two, and I love the way the wires hang. They look like big steel cables funneling high amounts of high voltage electricity. And now it was time to come over and build the skylight. So I'm using here, I think it's Japanese glass, which is the same kind of glass that I used at the meat factory in Feed the City. but I thought a big square of glass looked a bit too plain. So I came across, and this is scaffolding now that's going down as a kind of crisscross pattern. Now, I didn't have this overhead view when I was building this, so I didn't notice that it wasn't symmetrical until later on. But the scaffolding's gone into place, and then I've added another layer of, I think those are slate slabs on top, and bordered the slate pillars with more slate slab, and obviously fixed my mistake there. And boom, there it is. Now, if you've watched the series, or if you're watching the series, All the Mods Go Nuclear, you've seen that we've been inside this bad boy, and we've started to put the nuclear machines into position. I like it as a build goes. I mean, it's rare these days that I'm happy with a build, but I love the amount of windows in this build. It's very cool. It's a well-lit build. The front looks good. Everything about this build, I'm pretty much happy with. So there you go. If you haven't seen the series, make sure you do check out All the Mods Go Nuclear. It's a lot of fun, and we're making serious progress towards getting our city a solid source of sustainable nuclear power. I've been Sjin. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.